Breaking news. Lee Min-ho arrested after violent fight with Song Hye Kyo at luxury hotel. Seoul's glittering entertainment world has been rocked by an explosive scandal that no one saw coming. Lee Min-ho and Song Hye Kyo, the couple who just weeks ago announced they were expecting their first child together, are now at the center of an incident so shocking that it has sent ripples through the global Hallyu wave. In the early hours of this morning, police were called to the prestigious Rosewood Grand Seoul, a five-star hotel known for its absolute discretion and clientele of the rich and famous. Witnesses claim a heated altercation between Lee Min-ho and Song Hye Kyo erupted in their private suite on the 27th floor. By the time authorities arrived, hotel security had already intervened, and Lee Min-ho was reportedly taken into custody. The scene that shook the hotel. According to an exclusive source inside the Rosewood Grand, the fight began shortly after midnight. Guests on the same floor reported hearing the sound of raised voices, the crash of glass shattering, and the heavy slam of a door. One foreign guest staying 2 rooms away told reporters, "At first, I thought it was just a scene for a drama. The shouting was so intense, but when I heard someone crying and something heavy falling, I realized it was real. This was no performance." When hotel security finally gained access to the suite, the room was in complete disarray. A large vase lay smashed near the balcony doors. Cushions were strewn across the floor. A lamp lay sideways, its light flickering weakly. Song Hye Kyo was reportedly seated on the edge of the bed, her face pale and her hands trembling. Lee Min-ho stood near the balcony, breathing heavily, his shirt partially untucked, eyes dark with frustration. What sparked the explosion? The cause of the fight remains unclear, but speculation is running wild. Multiple sources suggest the argument may have stemmed from an earlier public sighting of Lee Min-ho at a high-profile networking event in Gangnam, where he was seen speaking closely with a well-known actress from a rival agency. One insider claims Song Hye Kyo confronted him at the hotel after the event. She asked him why he was there without telling her and why he looked so comfortable with someone he had once been linked to. He told her she was overreacting. That is when things got heated. A hotel staff member who spoke on condition of anonymity revealed that at one point during the argument, Song Hye Kyo reportedly said, "I am carrying our child, and this is how you treat me?" Her voice, described as both broken and furious, could be heard echoing down the hall. The moment police arrived. By the time police reached the suite, the tension was palpable. Officers asked Lee Min-ho to step aside and explain the situation. According to the police report, he was uncooperative at first, but eventually complied after being reminded that hotel security footage would be reviewed. He was escorted through the hotel lobby just after 2 a.m., his face partially hidden under a black cap. Even at that hour, a small crowd of guests had gathered, some recording the scene on their phones, while others simply watched in stunned silence. Song Hye Kyo's condition. Song Hye Kyo remained in the suite with a female manager and 2 close friends who arrived shortly after the police. A medical team was called to assess her condition, given her pregnancy. Sources close to her have assured the media that she is physically unharmed, but emotionally shaken. "She has been under a lot of stress lately," said one friend. "This was supposed to be a time of peace and joy for her, but instead it's turning into a nightmare." The hotel's response. The Rosewood Grand has released a short statement. "We can confirm that an incident took place involving 2 guests in one of our suites. Our security team responded promptly and cooperated fully with local authorities. Out of respect for privacy, we will not disclose further details." Lee Min-ho's detention. Lee Min-ho is currently being held for questioning at the Seoul Metropolitan Police Station. His agency has yet to release an official statement, though reporters have been stationed outside their headquarters all morning. Legal experts note that even if no formal charges are filed, the public nature of this incident could have lasting effects on his career and endorsements. Several major brands have already reached out to his management, requesting updates before deciding whether to continue their contracts. Industry and fan reactions. The reaction from the entertainment industry has been swift and divided. Some stars have quietly unfollowed Lee Min-ho on social media, while others have expressed disbelief, insisting this behavior is out of character. Fans, meanwhile, are in turmoil. On one side, there are those defending him, insisting that relationships have fights and that the truth will come out. On the other side, there are those expressing disappointment, anger, and concern for Song Hye Kyo and her unborn child. Online forums are flooded with debates, conspiracy theories, and amateur lip-read analyses of leaked hallway footage showing the couple arguing moments before entering their suite. What happens next? Police are expected to review security footage from the hotel to determine the sequence of events. Song Hye Kyo will also be invited to give a formal statement, though it is unclear if she'll choose to do so immediately. For now, the world watches and waits. Just weeks ago, they were the picture of a fairy tale romance, two of Korea's most admired stars preparing for the next chapter of their lives. Now, their love story is at risk of being rewritten entirely. As one industry insider put it, this isn't just a scandal. This is a fracture in the image they built together. And in this business, repairing that fracture might be harder than anyone thinks. The scene that shook the hotel extended. The Rosewood Grand Seoul was used to handling famous guests. The polished marble lobby, soft golden lighting, and discreet staff made it a sanctuary for those wanting to escape the relentless flash of paparazzi. But nothing in its long history prepared it for the chaos that would unfold in Suite 2703 that night. It was just after midnight when the peace shattered. The sound came first, sharp, sudden, and impossible to ignore. Guests on the 27th floor described it as a crash followed by muffled yelling. At first, a few assumed it was part of a late-night celebration gone too far. After all, celebrities sometimes held private gatherings in their suites. But the tone of the voices was different. Urgent. Angry. Inside, the atmosphere was nothing short of electric. The suite's panoramic windows overlooked the glittering Han River, but the room itself was a storm. The coffee table was tipped at an angle, one of its legs cracked. A tray of untouched dessert sat abandoned on the carpet, whipped cream melting into the rug. Song Hye Kyo was near the bed, her posture rigid, her hands clutching the folds of her silk robe so tightly her knuckles whitened. Her hair, perfectly styled when she had entered the hotel hours earlier, now fell loosely around her face.
We never stopped
Lee
loving
Min-ho
each other.
stood
Song
several
Hye
steps
Kyo
away,
and Lee
near the
Min-ho
balcony
rebuilt
doors.
quietly with
The
his
city
parents
lights
by their
cast a
side.
cold
The
glow over
world
his
had
features.
moved on.
His
At
jaw was
least,
clenched,
it thought
his
it had.
chest rising
New
and falling
headlines
in
had
quick,
taken over.
uneven
New
breaths.
faces were
Why
trending.
are you acting like
New
this?
dramas
His
were
voice
being
was
released.
low but edged with
But
steel.
somewhere beneath the
I am
noise,
acting like
beneath
someone
the
who deserves
fast-paced
honesty.
chaos of the
She shot
entertainment
back,
world,
her
two
voice
people were still
trembling,
writing their
not
story,
from fear
not
but
with
from
cameras,
holding back
not
tears.
with fame,
The
but with
first
silence.
signs of trouble.
And it all
A
started
bellboy
again,
passing
not
the
with a
suite
kiss,
earlier
not
had
with a
already
ring,
sensed
but with a
tension.
visit to a
He had
house on a
delivered a
hill.
fruit basket
A
to their
love
room
that didn't
just after
die,
11
it just
p.m.,
got quiet.
and although both
It had
stars
been
were
weeks
polite,
since Lee
the
Min-ho
silence
left.
between them was
Since
heavy.
the hospital
He later
incident.
recalled that Song
Since
Hye
she
Kyo
told him
barely
not to
looked at Lee
come.
Min-ho,
Since she
and
cried
he didn't
alone
once
with a
smile.
heartbeat inside
By
her and
12:20
memories she
a.m.,
couldn't switch off.
multiple guests on
And
the floor
still,
had
she
called the
hadn't
front
spoken
desk,
about him.
reporting
Not in
noises from
interviews,
2703.
not to friends,
One claimed to
not
hear
even in
something
private.
smash.
Because
Another
some
swore
stories
she heard a
hurt
woman's
too
voice
much to
say,
explain.
"This isn't
But
the
his
man
mother
I
had
thought
reached
you were."
out. And
When the
somehow,
argument
walking
turned,
through that door
back
felt
inside,
easier than
the
speaking
words
to
had
him.
begun to
But
spiral.
nothing
What started
could
as
have
questions
prepared
about
her
his
for what she
whereabouts
found
earlier
inside.
that evening
She
became
didn't
accusations,
find judgment.
then
She didn't find
counter-accusations.
pity.
You think I
She
don't see what's
found
happening?
warmth.
You
She
think I
found
don't know who
love
you've been
that never
talking
chose
to?
sides.
She demanded.
And most
He
of
ran a
all,
hand
she
through
found
his
space
hair,
to feel again.
frustration
They
visible
didn't
in
ask
every
about the
movement.
breakup.
You're
They
twisting
asked about
everything.
the baby.
You're making
That's
this
what
into
one
something
source
it's not.
revealed after
Then
Song
tell
Hye
me,
Kyo's emotional
she said,
visit to Lee
stepping
Min-ho's
forward,
family home.
her voice
There
breaking.
were no questions
Tell me the
about
truth
what
now,
went wrong.
before I
No
walk
blame.
away and never
No
look
judgment.
back.
They
For a
just
moment,
asked how the
the
baby
room
was.
went still.
They wanted
Only
to know
the
what
faint
she
hum of the
needed,
city outside
what made her
filled
smile.
the silence.
They wanted
And then,
her to feel
in a
safe.
sudden movement,
And slowly,
he knocked
for
over
the
the
first
glass
time
of
in a
water
long
on
time,
the table.
she did.
The crash
Lee
startled
Min-ho's
her,
mother
and it was that
reportedly spent
sound,
hours with her
sharp
in the
against the
garden,
night,
showing her
that
old
drew
photos,
hotel security
pointing out
closer
which
to
tree
their
minute
door.
Ho used to fall
Security
asleep under as a
makes the
child,
call.
and preparing
Two
herbal
security
soup she
officers
hadn't made
arrived
in
first,
years.
standing
She didn't
outside the
speak
suite,
much, the
listening.
housekeeper said,
One of them,
but she looked
an older
softer,
guard who had worked at the
brighter.
hotel for
And
over a
then
decade,
the knock came.
later described it
He came
as
back,
the kind
but he
of
didn't
tension
come
you
to
feel
talk.
in your bones.
He didn't arrive
They
with
could
flowers.
hear muffled voices
He
rising,
didn't dress like a drama
footsteps
lead.
pacing,
He
and the
didn't
faint
bring
scrape
promises.
of furniture against
Lee
the floor.
Minute Ho came back
Following
like a
hotel
man who'd been
protocol,
humbled
they
by
called the
distance.
manager on duty,
He walked
who in
in,
turn contacted
saw
the
her
Seoul
sitting at the
Metropolitan
piano,
Police. The
paused,
goal was to
and
de-escalate
whispered,
before
"I
anything
never
worsened,
stopped loving
but the
you."
situation was
She didn't
already
answer
slipping
right
out of
away.
control.
She
What the
simply
witnesses
played a
saw,
single note,
guests peeking
and
out
then
from
another,
behind their doors
until
caught
he sat
fleeting
beside
glimpses
her
through the
and
narrow
rested
gap
his hand
as the
not on
suite door
hers,
opened
but on the
briefly
side
during
of
the
the piano
confrontation.
bench. They
One
sat
guest
like that
claimed
for
she
minutes.
saw Song Hye
Two
Kyo
people who
standing
had
with her
broken
arms
apart
folded tightly
and were
across her
slowly
chest,
finding the shape
tears
of each
streaking
other
her
again.
cheeks.
"Don't
Lee
say
Min Ho's
sorry.
hand was
Just
raised,
stay."
not to
That
strike,
was the first
she
full
clarified,
sentence she said
but
to
in
him.
an animated
They were in
gesture
the
of
kitchen.
frustration.
His mother
Another
had
witness
stepped
described
out.
the expression
The
on his
soup was
face
still hot.
as a
He
mix of
tried to
anger and
explain,
desperation,
tried to
like he
apologize
was
again,
fighting for something
but she shook
he
her
couldn't
head.
quite hold on
"We've
to.
both cried
The
enough.
hotel room
I don't
in
need
chaos.
words anymore.
By the time
I just
security
need
decided
time.
to enter,
I just
the
need you to
suite looked
stay."
as if it had been
And he
swept
did.
by a sudden
That
storm.
night,
A
for the
large
first
vase
time in
lay in
weeks,
pieces
he
by the
stayed.
balcony,
Not in her
petals
room,
from white lilies
not
scattered
beside
across
her,
the floor.
but in the room
The
next
armchair
door,
near the window had
where
been
he could
pushed
hear
back
her
at an
breathe,
awkward angle,
and where,
one
for
of
the
its
first
cushions on
time
the
since
floor.
everything broke,
The air was
she didn't
thick,
cry.
with
A
tension,
morning walk
with emotion,
that felt like a
with
new
words
beginning.
that had hung
The next
unsaid
morning,
for far
the
too
two
long.
were seen walking
Song
together
Hye
along the
Kyo was
path
now
behind
sitting
the
on the
family
edge of the
home,
bed,
not
one
holding
hand
hands,
resting protectively
not
on her
talking,
abdomen.
just
Her eyes were
walking,
red but dry,
matching pace,
her gaze
the
fixed on the
kind of
carpet.
quiet that
Lee
only
Min Ho
comes from
stood
people who
several
know
feet
each other
away,
too well.
his arms
At
folded,
one point,
his
he
chest
reached
heaving.
for a fallen
"Sir,
blossom and handed
we
it
need
to
you to
her.
step outside."
She tucked it
One of the
behind her
guards
ear
said carefully.
and smiled.
He didn't move.
And that's
The
when the
police
housekeeper
arrived.
took the photo.
The knock on the door
A
was
quiet,
firm,
beautiful
followed by a
shot,
voice announcing
posted
Seoul
by the
Metropolitan
family's
Police.
niece.
The
Captioned,
officers entered with
"Some love
calm
stories
but
don't
commanding
restart
presence.
with fireworks.
One spoke
Just
directly to Lee Min
footsteps."
Ho,
It trended
asking him
in
to
under an
explain what
hour.
had happened.
A family
At
that
first, he
believes in
resisted.
second chances.
"This is a private
Later
matter,"
that
he
week,
said, his
Lee
tone
Minute
clipped.
Ho's parents
But when
hosted a
reminded
small
that
dinner.
several
No
witnesses had
press,
reported a
no
disturbance
friends,
and that hotel
just the
property
four
had
of
been
them.
damaged,
There was
he
music.
reluctantly agreed to
There
step
was
into the
laughter.
hallway.
And
The
at one
final
point,
moments
Song
before the
Hye Kyo
arrest,
got up to help in the
those who
kitchen,
saw him in
and
the
his mother
hallway
wouldn't
described
let
an
her.
image few
"You've
will
done
forget.
enough," she
The
told
man
her.
who had been the face
"This
of
time,
charm and
we serve
composure
you."
on countless
That night,
screens now
Lee
looked
Minute Ho
disheveled,
toasted to
his
her
hair
health.
slightly out of
And
place,
to the baby.
his shirt
No
partially
long
unbuttoned.
speech.
As
Just
police
a
spoke
soft,
with him,
simple,
Song Hye
"You
Kyo
brought me
remained
home.
inside the suite,
I'll spend the rest
flanked
of
by
my
her
life
manager
making
and
sure
a
you
female
never feel
hotel
alone
staff
again."
member.
She
From the
didn't
doorway,
cry.
she could
She
see
just held
him,
his hand
but
under the
neither
table.
spoke.
And this
Finally,
time,
after
she didn't
a brief
let go.
but tense discussion, officers guided him toward the elevators. His steps were slow, his eyes fixed ahead, avoiding the small crowd that had gathered in the lobby to catch a glimpse of the unfolding drama. The hotel's silence. Within minutes of the arrest, hotel staff began moving quietly but efficiently, removing the broken vase and replacing the damaged furniture. Discretion was everything at the Rosewood Grand, but the whispers among guests were impossible to contain. Some insisted it was simply a lover's quarrel taken too far. Others believed it was the beginning of a much bigger story, one that would unravel in the coming days. A moment frozen in memory. For those who witnessed it, the sight of two of Korea's most iconic stars caught in such a raw, unguarded moment will remain etched in memory. As one guest put it, "I've seen them play roles where they cry, fight, fall apart, but this was different. This wasn't acting. This was real." And the reality was that, in the heart of Seoul's most luxurious sanctuary, the fairy tale had cracked wide open for the world to see.